Hello, I'm Toby Fox from 1.5 Million New Homes, the local government challenge sponsored by Redloft and Bugler Developments. Now, the government wants us building 1.5 million new homes during its term, and the key delivery arm is for that national ambition is local government. So I'm going to visit Ealing in December in West London to understand a little bit about what works and what needs to change to enable councils to get more homes built. So ahead of that visit, I caught up with the Strategic Director for Economy and Sustainability at Ealing Council, Peter George. Peter, can you start off by just telling us what makes Ealing special?
Yeah, thanks Toby, and thanks for the opportunity. So I joined Ealing, I think last May now, 2023, where I was previously at Enfield, and there were a number of reasons why I decided to kind of pursue my career in Ealing. So I spent a lot of time walking around the borough in the run-up to my interview and in the run-up to starting, and I quite quickly fell in love with the borough, and there were a number of reasons why. So firstly, we think about Ealing as comprising 7 different towns, and there's real kind of differences and diversity across those different towns. So we have some really high growth areas, so Acton and Southall are two of London's highest growth zones. So the two areas combined are going to be delivering 25,000 homes over the next 15 years. But those areas in the kind of east and west of the borough are very different to each other. So Southall's obviously got a wonderfully rich South Asian heritage, and Acton, well, firstly, it's home of OPDC, the Old Oak Common development area. It's got some really big developments being led, for example, by Countryside at South Acton, Transport for London and Barrett's in the kind of Acton town kind of area. So there's a lot of growth in those two areas. The third area where we're starting to experience quite a lot of growth is Ealing Broadway, home of course to the council's offices, which we're going through a process of refurbishing rather than redeveloping, very much led by kind of environmental reasons. And then we've also got 4 kind of smaller towns that are at different stages of development. What the borough really benefits from over the last few years is the addition of the Elizabeth line. That's really catalysed growth in the areas around those particular stations. And I think a challenge for us is to really think about how we can plan for and organise that growth so that it's benefiting to the local communities in and around those stations. West Ealing's a good example, which has now got Elizabeth line station, hasn't experienced much growth before the Elizabeth line station. There's now quite significant growth scheduled around that station, and it's how that growth can come forward in a way that doesn't alienate local people and that benefits local people. And that's about making sure the housing meets needs, but it's also about making sure that there's sufficient public realm and social infrastructure to support local need. I think the other thing to say about Ealing is it's known as the Queen of the Suburbs for a reason. We've got some tremendous parks in the borough, over 100 parks, and we're looking to create a new regional park right in the heart of the borough, which we think can go beyond borough boundaries over time. We've already created the first part of that park, Pear Tree Park. So that's something that we're really excited about.
What's the scale of that, Peter? What is a regional park in size?
So the ultimate ambition for the regional park in Ealing is for it to be a park that's kind of comparable to the Elizabeth Park over in Stratford. So if you think about the Lee Valley Regional Park and the Olympic Park as at the heart of that, it's thinking about how we can create a West London equivalent that starts within our borough, that ultimately, following the River Brent, goes north and south beyond our borough. The way to think about it is, if you are successfully planning for growth, you can anticipate the future needs of the borough. And all boroughs are going to experience population growth over the next decade or so. So how can you plan for that growth? How can you ensure that as the number of people in the borough increases, that you can ensure that the amount of green open space available to those new residents is going to meet the needs. You can ensure that the amount of GP surgeries and school places are going to meet the needs of a growing population. I think that is kind of our definition of good planning.
You mentioned earlier about responding. You mentioned about responding to needs, to local needs. What are those needs? How are they expressed in terms of temporary accommodation requirements, in terms of waiting lists for housing, and so on?
So, I think Ealing's not unique in London in so far as our temporary accommodation needs have really grown quite considerably, particularly over the last couple of years. I think we're actually growing at a faster rate than most of the London boroughs. So we're expressing that need in part around our target to deliver 4,000 genuinely affordable homes on the ground by 2026. And our local plan, we've submitted it now. So we're hoping our new local plan will be adopted next year. That seeks 50% affordable housing in line with the GLA targets, but we're ideally seeking a minimum of 40% affordable housing, and we want 70% of the affordable housing to be social housing. So we've got quite a significant focus on how we can deliver permanent social housing, but we're also actively in the kind of the acquisition market. So we're actively pursuing opportunities to acquire blocks, both within the borough and outside of the borough, in order to meet that kind of urgent temporary accommodation need.
And one of the justifications for that, am I right in suggesting, is that the cost of not providing that housing in terms of what you're spending on temporary accommodation outweighs the cost of buying those houses and having those assets for the future?
It does, but I think actually with this type of debate, we can focus a lot on the financial cost when we should really be talking about the human cost. Because it's the human cost of having, particularly families with children across London and across the country, in unsuitable accommodation, in hotels, moved too frequently, disrupting education. It's that human cost that we have to be focused on.
And how does your progress in delivering those homes match up against the targets that you've been set on a national basis, by the government?
So the housing market has been particularly challenging over the last couple of years or so. I mean, it's been difficult all the way back to COVID. We've had a mixture of different pressures at at different points in time. Inflation has been present for a long period of time. We've had, we're still bedding in the new building safety legislation, which is having timescale implications. Absolutely the right move by the government, but it's still bedding in. So there has been a number of pressures. In Ealing, we've also been unfortunate to have suffered contractor defaults. So that has been quite financially painful for the council to have to work out how to remobilise sites where contractors have gone into administration, or where you've got long-standing relationships with housing associations who are no longer able to deliver because they're having to refocus their available capital on their existing stock, and therefore aren't able to deliver perhaps long-standing estate regeneration commitments. So we've suffered a number of different types of kind of market failure with a variety of partners that is resulting in us having to kind of take stock and look for different type of partnerships in order to remobilise those projects. So I think that's the backdrop. As a consequence of that, our existing annual target of 2,100, we think this year will struggle to achieve half. So that's our 2,100 target set within the existing London Plan target. We know the existing London Plan target will go up from about 55 to 80,000 homes a year. We haven't been given our new target yet, but clearly if 32, 33 boroughs have to accommodate around 30,000 homes between them, we are braced for our target to go up quite considerably, and we're starting to think about how best we would seek to accommodate a higher figure than the one we've already got.
Peter, you've talked about the national targets, the local targets that are being set to you as a result of the targets being set for London. But the Deputy Mayor of London, Jules Pipe, recently said that those targets are unreachable. So how do you respond to that?
Yeah, thanks. So I wasn't at the event where the Deputy Mayor spoke, but I've read the comments that have been attributed to him. So on the basis that those comments are kind of accurate and reliable, I think I was surprised to read them. If it's true that the Deputy Mayor has gone on record and said that the government's 1.5 million target is not achievable, and that London's 80,000 target is not achievable, then I think that the GLA really need to clarify the sentiment behind that statement, because I think for the Deputy Mayor responsible for planning and therefore the London Plan, and therefore the politician responsible for leading on the London Plan and leading on a plan that is required to demonstrate to government how 80,000 homes can be delivered within London every year. If that same person doesn't believe that the 80,000 target is indeed deliverable, then I think to some that may kind of call into question the kind of the integrity of the London plan before the process has really got underway.
So is that in effect you calling for a reduction in London's target and therefore Ealing's target?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that I think the wider London development industry needs clarification from the GLA as to whether they are committed to putting together a strategic London plan that can realise 80,000 homes a year as handed down to them as a target by government, in light of the fact that the Deputy Mayor responsible for planning has cast doubt on the deliverability of that target.
Peter, you've been awarded platinum planning status. What is that and how do you achieve it? What have you done to achieve it?
So, platinum planning status is a kind of a status given to just 12 councils by Planning Resource magazine, who carried out an independent assessment of local planning authorities across the country, measuring them against a variety of planning metrics, including, for example, the consistency around which major planning applications were determined, and both based upon both their assessment but also the government's own data, Ealing is consistently the top performing planning authority in London, which we're really proud about. The article that I wrote for the planner and my subsequent LinkedIn post, I've highlighted some of the reasons that I attribute to our success. I think some of those include having a collaborative, not a transactional relationship with applicants, wanting to collaborate to achieve the best for sites and for neighbourhoods. Secondly, we have a presumption in favour of having meetings on major planning applications in person, because we feel complex schemes should be discussed in person. I think thirdly, we're joined up internally, so from the junior planner all the way up to the leader of the council and the planning committee. We're joined up as a pro-growth council, and we all kind of work as a single team, as a single unit. We've got a local plan that's been submitted, so up-to-date planning framework I think is really important. But I think finally, it's about communication skills. We have open and robust conversations where we're clear about our standards, and if you meet our standards, then we'll support the applications.
Peter, thank you. We'll pick up on a number of those themes throughout the rest of the episodes on Ealing. Until then, thank you very much indeed for taking part in 1.5 million new homes, the local government challenge. Peter George, the Strategic Director for Economy and Sustainability at Ealing Council.
Thank you.